There is much to be skeptical of in this world, so it no longer surprises me to learn how many people don't really believe in anything. What's the point? For many of us, the road is a difficult one, but the path is always there for us to follow, no matter how many times we may fall. You're not so certain. Fair enough. We all go through periods of darkness. Of course. In a world filled with misery and uncertainty, it is a great comfort to know that, in the end, there is light in the darkness.
In October 1997, Fallout, the post-nuclear role-playing game, was out in stores. And it changed the world. No, it didn't. Fallout sold okay, but the franchise didn't enter the gaming mainstream until its acquisition by Bethesda. And only a year later, in 1998, we were playing the sequel. It was twice as big, very buggy, but pretty good overall, enriching the setting with post-apocalyptic Scientology and an Italian mafia faction. But the third Fallout game won't be out for a while. The suits in charge of Interplay became obsessed with the idea of breaking into the console market.
The Brotherhood is the law, or the closest thing to law that anyone's seen in a long time.
Back then there was this notion that the RPG genre was too sophisticated for a common console man. But eventually the suits gave the go-ahead to develop a proper Fallout sequel. This is how Project Van Buren was born. Black Isle codenamed their projects after American presidents. Chris Avellone and Josh Sawyer were in charge of the design. The game was cancelled in 2003. Some of the characters, factions, other elements were later reused in Fallout New Vegas, Caesar's Legion, Joshua Graham, the Hoover Dam. But the real secret of Van Buren, the secret the big RPG industry doesn't want you to know, is that Black Isle's Fallout 3 still exists in a video game afterlife of sorts. The elaborate design documents detailing the game's quests, locations, characters can be found online. The game lives in these digital pages. There are several ongoing attempts to recreate Van Buren based on the surviving documentation, like Project Revelation Blue, first announced just a year ago, a New Vegas mod. Jesus fuck, is it Revelation Blue or Revelation Blues? The lack of naming consistency is not a good sign. As a platform, Vegas has its advantages. The developers can reuse some of the assets, like the building geometry, the outfits, and first-person RPGs seem to be more popular than isometric ones. The potential audience is bigger, that's good. And then there is ProjectVanBuren.com, an attempt to recreate the game using Unity engine, notable for preserving the original's early 3D aesthetic. The website mentions volunteer associates, but I'm pretty sure this is mostly a one-man effort by Adam Latsko. Very nice visuals. But the game we'll take a look at today is something else. Fallout Yesterday is an attempt to rebuild the original Fallout 3 on the engine of Fallout 2. There is supposed to be no significant difference between BIS Van Buren and Fallout Yesterday, except for the engine change and the additional plot info the developer got from Chris Avellone. Actually, I even met a few ex-BIS legends in person in 2017 and got their blessing for going down the old school road. The disadvantage of using the classic engine is, well, my impression is that there are quite a few people who like to watch these videos, but very few actually play the old game. Which is probably not that weird, it's a 90s product with an archaic user interface. Well, let's experience a little bit of the resurrected Fallout 3. FantasyNamesGenerator.com tells me Joel is a fairly standard American male name, so we'll go with that. There are additional character customization options, not a ubiquitous feature of classic Fallout mods, but not an uncommon one either. A more exotic feature is the race selection. Play as a human, a ghoul, or a super mutant. Ghouls are frail, but smart. Super mutants are strong, but not very charismatic. Unfortunately, the engine was never designed with the race selection feature. It needed to be hacked in. Picking your race won't update your stats with correct bonuses and penalties until the game begins. This is my first proper playthrough, so I'll do a conventional human, specializing in unarmed, lockpick, and speech. High agility, high intelligence. A standard-ass build, effective in every single Fallout game, official or mod. Welcome to Arizona. The year is 2253. We are doing time. The robot standing in the doorway of our cell looks like a less blocky version of a Securitron. This happens to be the facility director. TIBBETS Penitentiary is run by robots. We were kidnapped. Good morning, number 13. I hope you enjoyed our little welcoming movie. As a matter of fact, I did not. The game shows you an old American educational video about atomic physics that has pretty much nothing to do with the game's story, and it's like 5 or 6 minutes long. So, how did I get here? Our warden, Odysseus, arranged for your transfer. This is a place where you are shielded from the harms of the outside world, and a place where you can learn to become a better person. You can learn about respecting others, respecting your country, your government. We've been kidnapped by robot spooks. TIBBETS is many things: a re-educational facility, a medical center, a for-profit prison. 320 inmates are employed by 3 Voltec factories. Last year, they recorded sales of over $26 million with profits, says the director. We need to report to Odysseus, our overlord. We'll be put on trial. There is a locker in our cell, inside a shiv and a sex doll. In Van Buren, every character starts as a virgin. There is even a special perk, and once the protagonist becomes a sex haver, the perk or the trait disappears from the character sheet. The director is complaining about their wheel being creaky, so I use the repair skill on them to see what's wrong. But this initiates combat because the game thinks my intention was to disassemble the robot. Reload. There are dozens of new traits, but the old UI can't fit all of them, so they are instead presented as perks. Most of these are silly min-max kind of traits that make you good at one thing and catastrophically bad at everything else. But some are interesting. Beast Lord. Reach within the mind of the easily swayed. Animals, politicians, and marketing personnel to control their very thoughts. Beast Lords only wear armor made from animals. But we'll pick the NCR background since I doubt the more extreme traits are implemented in the current build. Cell Block 13. Is this why everyone is wearing a jumpsuit with the number 13? The robot cop tells us we are free to go anywhere in the facility. The central hub. The prison is huge. I'm not sure if this is your typical modder's megalomania or perhaps the designer is just trying to be authentic to the source material. Overcomplicated intro locations that overstay their welcome is a pathology of many Black Isle and early Obsidian games. The most extreme example of this is the space station in KOTOR 2. A young woman in the corner is watching the robots from the shadows. She introduces us to various groups and cliques inside the prison. The 3 main ones are the robots, the convicts, and the sheriff's people. The robots take great pride in what they do, she says. There is a real tradition to it. The sheriff and his men are helping. Let's explore around. This is the medical wing, one of them. The woman in white is a doctor and a nurse. She knows how to operate the autodoc. Talk to her if you are low on health. The gym. The punching bags are interactable, but I didn't notice any skill increases. We might be too good at punching. Look at this fucking bench. Assuming these are 20s and the smaller ones are 15s, 80 plus 80 plus 20 plus 30, that's 210 kilograms. We can ask this guy to spot us, but there doesn't seem to be any way to actually interact with the bench. Magic's Twin Stars. The guards inform us that Magic is a local trader, one of the few. His business model is that he buys stolen things and then resells them to other inmates for caps. We're not really qualified or interested in being a thief. Instead, how about we beat the shit out of these guys and take their stuff for free? The guards are easy, but Magic himself is tough. However, our character was pretty much made to dominate the early game threats. We get all their items, including a set of lockpicks. And in this locker, there is a what the fuck amount of bottle caps. This is just stupid. Imagine carrying thousands of caps in your pockets as you do your daily shopping. There are ghoul prisoners, and this here is a super mutant convict. He doesn't know anything about Master's army or whatever, he says. Worked on a farm all his life. The lockpicks are hugely important because despite appearances, the secure doors are protected with conventional locks, not electronic ones. Someone is producing alcohol in this little cave. Aldo's Klamath Special. I wonder where he gets the wood to fuel the still. Try fixing the exposed wires? Get electrocuted. The body behind the force field is a lobotomite, a human with a brain surgically removed. Previously, they appeared on a loading screen in Fallout 1, and then they were in a DLC for New Vegas. The robots don't do a great job maintaining the installation. Everything is covered in dirt and rust. A train. The facility is bigger than I thought. The enclave floor decoration thing is too pompous for this place. So, is the train still working? Well, we traveled somewhere, a different station. Did we escape TIBBETS? Was it this easy? You emerge into a clearing surrounded by mountain cliffs from all sides, says the game. An old road leads to dusty buildings in the distance. Groups of prisoners socializing behind the fence. We didn't escape. This is still a part of the TIBBETS facility. You got 10 seconds. Tell me the password or I blow your head clean off and feed the red scorpions. However, I'll happily trade you these drugs I have. This is Eugene. The graffiti on the wall of his house says Eugene sucks. He doesn't actually suck, he just has Tourette's. An underground garage, infested with scorpions. This is not a classic Fallout sprite, borrowed from Fallout Tactics, I think. It's not better or worse. Early game combat is a weakness of most isometric Fallouts, official or fan-made. It involves a lot of kiting and doing dumb video gamey shit. Never seen shrooms like these before. Maybe someone in the prison knows how to get high off them. Welcome to Fergie's Lost and Found. What can I get you? She tells a little about herself. Grew up in Junktown. Was in TIBBETS for God knows how long. Moved here, underground, 2 years ago. It's a nice place. Fergie has a laser pistol for sale. This is brilliant, and this alone makes energy weapon starts viable. The blue robe-looking thing is an armored vault suit, a prisoner-made, I assume. Doesn't change the way we look. Welcome aboard. I am Chief Security Officer Seb, appointed by the sheriff, to whom I report on a monthly basis. Things got busy lately, she says. The robots brought in a whole cult. Rainmakers, they're called. A harmless bunch, but the hospital is full. Read the weather forecast magazine, stranger. You'll be glad you did. Not sure if this is related or not, but after I joined the Rainmakers as a joke, Joel's charisma score seems to have jumped by 2 points. A bug or a feature, I don't know. We're working on a cure for insanity, says this doctor. He needs volunteers. It's a side quest. I don't think this is implemented because I've never got a dialogue option with any of the other patients. Patients like this woman who complains that she had to prostitute her daughter to another prisoner in order to afford food. But then as the conversation keeps going, I get the impression that the daughter was imaginary. The doctors have an interesting relationship with this place. They seem to prefer being locked up in TIBBETS to being free. In fact, they want to help the robots run this place better. The scarecrow might have been fashioned in the likeness of Lynette, the first citizen of Vault City. Clearing a red scorpion nest is a rare side quest that is actually properly implemented. Use a shovel on the nest to bury it. The robot in the beginning of the game told us to report to Odysseus for interrogation. A small dark room. Video feeds of 2 old men talking are being looped on the monitors. The trial shall commence now. TIBBETS Prisoner 13. Do you admit the acts of terrorism against the government of the United States of America? The United States of what? Oh, come on. They have schools in NCR. You know what that is. Do you admit conspiring with the Chinese Communist government in order to weaken and harm the defense perimeters set up by the Central Intelligence Agency? I'm innocent. The court is now in session. Judge Odysseus presiding. Please be seated. Calling the case of the people of the state of Arizona versus Joel. Are both sides ready? So we're being charged with the crime of driving a car belonging to the Central Intelligence Agency. Honestly, I haven't got the slightest idea what's going on in this scene. Odysseus invites and interrogates witnesses. All of them are also Odysseus, who has multiple personalities. I think the developer intention is that this is supposed to be sort of like the trial sequence from Neverwinter 2, but the little dialogue box is the worst possible medium for theatrical scenes like this. At least we gain a level. Remember the robot cop guarding the cell block? I kinda wanna farm these for XP. Here is a little classic Fallout secret. Every robot can be disabled by destroying its sensor lenses, which is achieved by a single critical hit in the eyes. I fully intend to save scum this, but it wasn't even necessary. First attempt. We don't have other weapons except for our fists. Eventually, I discover that the only attack that deals any amount of damage is a critical strike in the head area, and that doesn't always work. After getting the robot to 1/3 of its health, it stops taking damage completely. My disappointment is immeasurable. Cool to see prisoners treating their cells like apartments, decorating them with objects of cultural value. The woman is a witch or a shaman. She calls young people hatchlings. I find it hard to take her seriously. The cool people cell block. Not sure what they put in the holy water, but the locals seem to get high of it. The Vault Boy hologram introduces a technology called SimTech 5000, which I'm pretty sure wasn't in the design document. It'll provide a safe and reassuring simulation of life in the vault based on pre-recorded memory of an unknown dweller that entered the vault on October 19th, 2077.
Raise it. Raise it even to the foundation.
It's like Tranquility Lane from Fallout 3, complete with a monochrome screen filter. The original Van Buren was supposed to begin with a pre-war gameplay sequence where Corporal Armstrong in power armor escorts you to a nearby vault just prior to the bombs falling and annihilating everything. It's a tutorial level, and as far as I can tell, the character you are playing isn't connected to the protagonist in any way. The entire sequence is included in the leaked Van Buren alpha, but it's not super fun. In Fallout Yesterday, it's implemented as a side quest. The black and white filter makes the text boxes near unreadable. The American communist guerrillas are waging people's war against us. If you die in the sim, you die in real life. The buildings and the bodies have useful items in them, but they only exist inside the simulation. Holy shit, the communists got Corporal Armstrong. He had no reloads for his minigun. That was the problem. I wonder why the place is so ruined. Is it because of the riots? For comparison, this is what the area looks like in the Van Buren tech demo. And this is what it looks like in Adam Letzko's prototype. The game says the brochure is the Communist Manifesto, but it actually looks like Mao's Red Book. I am unable to confirm if it is indeed red. A Fallout 4 style Voltec transport vehicle. Not sure if it fits the aesthetic. This is Vault 8, the future Vault City. Enter freely, citizen. I am Dr. Moreau. How can I help you? Commies attacked me outside. I don't feel well. Commies, you say? As long as there are differences, we will tear ourselves apart fighting each other. We did it, team. This took years, but we finally made Fallout 3 writing look good. Moreau will eventually get exiled from the vault. He will travel south to the hub. There, he will become Richard Gray, a physician and a philosopher. Together with Harold and some others, he'll go to Mariposa military base and accidentally fall into the vats. We know how this story ends. The second level is a copy of the same map from Fallout 2 with a handful of things switched places. So this floor was used as a warehouse even before the war for some reason. Why are you doing this to me, game? The crates still have the spare water chips, and there is a suit of metal armor in the locker. Just terrible. Activating the jukebox ends the simulation. A bar. No barkeep though. This is Angela, a regular. She struggles with the concept of a town because Angela was born in TIBBETS. Many locals were. The facility is a special place. Before the war, it held some of the America's most dangerous criminals. Prior to the vaults being established, it was used for primitive isolation studies. The Van Buren design doc says the player should escape in about an hour after starting the game, but there is enough content in TIBBETS to occupy them for up to 5 hours. The protagonist is supposed to return here several times, progressively unlocking more and more of the facility, but I don't think this is implemented in the current build. Anyway, Angela eventually confesses that she wants to fuck robots. Officer Rob is one of the sheriff's men. What's the point of having a sheriff and deputies when there are security robots all over the place? A robot can't read people well, can't build social connections. This thing is a new asset, but it looks very natural next to the other sprites. The kitchen. The prisoners keep saying something about noises coming from the eastern hallway. Let's see what's up. Is that an Enclave trooper? He's not hostile. Not sure if you can see this on YouTube, but there is another trooper standing right next to us with an active stealth boy. We can't use the look at command on this individual, so I guess these stealth boys finally work in the classic engine. The soldiers are not interested in us, and if anything, they seem to be friendly-ish. The kids are playing right next to them, and nobody seems to mind. The black armor is borrowed from the Olympus mod. They shot the TIBBETS robots. The slugs are slow, very durable, and their attacks are weak. There are several of them, and the sprites look like they've been taken from a different game. They don't provide much XP when killed. This battle is perfect in just how terrible and boring it is. The dead robot is the behemoth type, borrowed from Fallout Tactics. The soldiers blew up a hole in the ceiling and rappelled down the facility. The rope must be incredibly strong since these are power armor troops. The officer says we are free to leave, but he doesn't bother explaining or identifying himself. This is where it struck me that these are probably not Enclave soldiers. We are almost certainly dealing with the Brotherhood of Steel. The game takes place well after the events of Fallout 2, so it makes sense they got their hands on some advanced power armor design associated with the American government. Knowledge of our enemies will help us prevail. Alright, let's get the hell out of here. Cool. The vertebrate isn't animated, but I don't care. Some of the inmates were supposed to mark various locations on our map, but I guess this wasn't implemented.
Word of you at Fort Aradesh. Fort abandoned. Even further west than that.
Hanged people. Reminds me of something. Fort Aradesh is an NCR military base, or was an NCR military base. It was mentioned in Lonesome Road, but this is the first time we actually get to visit the place. The map is very annoying to navigate. In Adam Letzko's project, Fort Abandoned looks like this. I like his version a lot more. A power plant. I wonder if it's functioning. The layout was copied from the Gecko power plant from the second game, but things were moved around a bit. Inside one of the rooms there is a dead tribal tied to a pipe. Someone tortured him to death. The reactor chamber is used as a safe room by a bunch of locals hiding from whatever killed the NCR troops outside. The talking head is borrowed from Fallout Sonora. NCR Rangers offered us protection, but they were overwhelmed by raiders. We locked ourselves inside until NCR sends help. Who is the dead guy tied to a pipe? He told us useful things. I got carried away with my knife. At least he revealed the raiders call themselves Caesar's Legion, and that their camp lies at the farm northwest of here. I hope our Brahmin are fine. They are. The reddish cows are the originals, and the light brown ones are borrowed from Fallout Tactics. To get to the farm, we need to go through this parking lot. No legionnaires here, just annoying as dogs. A bunch of armed people and a corpse. They don't look like tribals. These guys are NCR mercs. The Desert Rangers pay them to track and hunt down slavers, especially Legion scouts. They tracked the Legionnaires here by following their car tracks, but then they lost Ziggy. Not to the slavers though. You've heard about the Deathglow, right? Now imagine one you cannot see, a chameleon. They are native to the Grand Canyon. We've heard a story about these creatures from one of the inmates back in TIBBETS, and these are the vehicles the bounty hunter was talking about. This was translated directly from the Van Buren concept art. Very cool. The sprites conform to the classic game's aesthetic really well, which is not common in this mod. The farm northwest from here. Listen to this. Do you hear it? Exactly. It's nothing. How is it even possible to fuck up world map travel? All you need is travel music, reasonable character speed, and then some fun random shit happening every once in a while. The Doctor Who reference is a special encounter copy-pasted from Fallout 1. A group of nomads. The tribal child sprite is new to the mod. Red scorpion hunters fighting mantis hunters. An ancient war of ideology. You seem to find some people in the wrong place at the wrong time. You will come with us. Odysseus will never stop pursuing you or the others. Give us freedom or give us death. I will not ask again. Come now or you will be made an example of. This is another scene copy-pasted from a classic Fallout game with the characters and the dialogue changed a bit. I have mixed feelings about these sprites. I like that the dev had the presence of mind to put the protagonist behind the bush. This was when I realized that the farm where Legionnaires are holed up is accessible from Fort Aradesh. The transition zone dumped me to the world map because it isn't set up properly.
Translation became giving orders. Giving orders became leading in battle.
So these are the Legionnaires. They don't appear to have standardized uniforms. I do like the look of these new sprites though. In Van Buren, the Legion is a group of tribal slavers. A tribal in Fallout speak somewhat problematically means a caveman. So these are cavemen with guns and chariot-shaped road vehicles. This sounds kind of cool actually. This entire sequence is really well designed. The Legion camp is attacked by an invisible Deathclaw, the same well-foreshadowed creature that killed Ziggy. I replayed this scene twice. The first time, the slavers managed to kill the beast after losing about 3/4 of their number, but that still left too many survivors for us to handle, so I reloaded. An exploding spear. I love this stuff because throwing weapons are underused in pretty much all classic Fallouts. Now it's just us and a critically wounded Deathclaw. I had to consume every single drug we had and reload like 10 or so times before managing to score 2 critical hits in a row, defeating the beast. This is the most well-made location in the entire mod. Tons of new graphics and all of it fits into the classic aesthetic. And there is an underground level. You moron, you buried us on the wrong side of the cave. Chief of 10 said we move these eggs somewhere safe and far away before they hatch. So the beast went after the tribals cause they stole its eggs. Once the slavers are dead, a new character appears at the power plant. If you played New Vegas, you might have already guessed who this is.
I survived because the fire inside burned brighter than the fire around me.
Wrapped from head to toe in bandages, his entire body catastrophically burned, this is Joshua Graham. He was supposed to be a very different character in Van Buren. There's not much to say right now, helpful stranger. I want my revenge and I won't rest until Caesar is dead. Any help is welcome. Well, I'm not sure if we can say no. The dialogue isn't really implemented. Joshua joins us as a companion without asking our permission. He was supposed to be one of the people hanging on this screen. I must have missed him. Welcome to Circle Junction, home of the Iron Rivers tribe who migrated from somewhere west by following the train tracks. Circle Junction was originally part of Chris Avalon's role-playing campaign that Van Buren was based on. The Hanged Man is the first and the most able companion character, but he is also very evil, and in some ways he makes it harder to progress through the game. He will initiate combat with all tribals he sees, calling them degenerates. The wiki hints that a character with good negotiating skills might be able to circumvent this, but these tribals don't seem to have a conversation system implemented. Prisoner 13, we have finally caught up with you. It's time to put an end to your deviant behavior. Hand over your Pip-Boy for analysis. Fuck you, robot.
Not even the carrion eaters are interested in your radiated corpse.
The location is very obviously incomplete. No one has dialogue or barks, the shelves are empty, characters can go through walls. There is this huge administrative building operated by tribals. High-tech elevators. Is there a vault? Since nothing is properly implemented, we'll just move on. A Brotherhood patrol, a good sign, means they have a base nearby, and they seem to be non-hostile. Some random encounters are new, others are copy-pasted from Fallout 2. What is this place?
And the Blackfoots were friendly enough at first, but eventually... I've thought back to that day so many times. I must have mistranslated.
The Blackfoot tribe was founded by a US military officer and his unit, who were homeless and jobless after the war destroyed their home and their country. So they became raiders and eventually joined forces with a wandering Native American group. Wait, is this the Izbushka tile set from Oblivion Lost? This owns. After a disease depopulated the tribe, the Blackfoots began stealing teenagers from the nearby communities, eventually becoming slavers, although they showed no interest in ghouls, the bad spirits, or super mutants, the demons in the flesh of men. I don't know why I'm telling you guys this. None of that is actually implemented in-game. The reason the name Blackfoots might sound familiar is because in the plot of New Vegas it was the first tribe of the Legion, the one trained by Sallow and Graham. That's one of the Mexican tile sets from Sonora. This entire location feels like an early draft. The music is nice though. giant Gila monsters. Not the best looking sprite, but not the worst. The wolves are also a new sprite. The mod has a ton of new visual assets, but almost all of them are downgrades or side grades. The steel bunker door is firmly shut, with no apparent way of opening it, says the game. You can see a cave further down the cliff to the east. The banner of the Brotherhood of Steel. Sorry, but we can't let anyone in right now. Technical problems. This message is copy-pasted from Fallout 1. Wait, what the fuck? I've only noticed this in editing. The entire cave is copy-pasted. What the fuck with this mod?
The darkness of the afterlife is all that awaits you now.
Here is some lore about this place. Remember the New Vegas plot arc about the Nightkin and Stealth Boys? About how the Stealth Boy overuse induced paranoia? So in Van Buren, this pathology was supposed to be a problem of the Brotherhood. A bunch of boss deserters under the influence would form a covert group called the Circle of Steel. By the description, it sounds like the Renegade Brotherhood faction from Bethesda's Fallout 3. This is what Maxon's bunker looks like in Latsko's interpretation. A Brotherhood patrol fighting cazadors. They don't appear to be as dangerous as in Vegas, well, at least not to power armor troops. Every time Joshua encounters a tribal, he calls them a degenerate and attacks. But the script doesn't check if a tribal is alive or dead, so he just runs around yelling at dismembered bodies. Giant scolopendras from Sonora are back, but this time they have this area of effect projectile attack. We return to TIBBETS. The vertebrate was destroyed. The rope was cut. This is where the adventure ends. The mod is light on content. Fallout yesterday. Let's get the unpleasant stuff out of the way. This mod has teenager's first RPG maker project kind of energy, but without the wholesomeness of it all. It tries to differentiate itself from other games in this engine by throwing a kitchen sink of sprites, concept art, screen effects, music tracks, and all this stuff is very inconsistent, both in terms of quality and art direction. What's up with the main menu art? It doesn't look like Fallout. Looks more like Wolfenstein. Do we travel back in time to kill Hitler? If not, why do we need this? The game was in development for 9 years. There is not a whole lot of playable content. In the thread, the developer said the project is 40-50% finished, but based on this release, it feels more like 10% or less. Allow me to explain how these mods are actually made. If you worked for 1,000 hours making new sprites, locations, characters, and then for 1 hour writing scripts, this means you spent 1 hour working on a mod. Scripting is always the bottleneck. The 30-year-old Fallout boomers never bothered to cultivate a proper modding community. Fallout mod tools weren't designed to be used by fans. Creating content in this engine is not an art or a science. It's sorcery. Nobody really knows how to do this. There are very few skilled Fallout scripters, and there is barely any documentation. So yeah, there is a ton of new visual assets in yesterday, but the basic early game quests still don't work. But it's not all bad. Imagine if BIS started working on this game in 1998, right after they shipped Fallout 2. That's the goal. And I'll be damned if it doesn't sort of work. At least when you're exploring the parts of the mod that are finished. We did get a fun adventure out of it, didn't we? An authentic Black Isle game on the engine of Fallout 2 would be a great gift for us classic Fallout appreciators. Anyway, you guys know what's coming next. I just have to.
Zion may not be lost to us after all.
Van Buren was cancelled in 2003. The tech demo we're about to play was released or leaked in 2007. I'm not sure about the politics or ethics of this. The tech demo is barely functional and it obviously wasn't made for public use. Power armor would have looked a lot less stupid without the shoulder pads. They added a new dialogue skill called Deception. This is good and cool since the speech skill was overburdened with too many checks. Throwing, first aid, repair, and gambling were removed. RIP gambling build. The panel on the bottom is visual customization. We'll play as a Cossack-looking dude with red skin and an afro. Your communist parents didn't believe the government bombing raid sirens and were reduced to ash. Corporal Armstrong is here to escort us to the vault. Like I mentioned, this is supposed to be a prologue or a tutorial for the full game. The player character in this sequence is not related to the protagonist of the main story. There are no shadows, everything looks very alpha-y, but I'd say this has potential. In terms of art direction, this looks better than Neverwinter 1, released a year prior. Love the colors. The look at command is now contextual. Most skills appear to function this way. Some animations are missing. The sounds are placeholders from the original game. Like Fallout Tactics, Van Buren was planned to feature both a real-time and a turn-based combat mode. We loot the body and put on the cool leather jacket the Insurgent was wearing. There is a separate slot for headwear, and the items are actually displayed on the character when we equip them. A common feature in modern games, but somewhat rare in old RPGs. I remember this location. It was somewhat authentically recreated in Fallout yesterday. This seedy-looking individual looks an awful lot like a communist. A burning highwayman. Super cool. The Vault, our destination. With his mission being complete, Corporal Armstrong departs. There isn't a whole lot to this demo, but I dig the early 3D art style. This elevated Let's Go's project in my eyes. Pretty sure it's possible to get inside the vault, but the game kept crashing over and over, culminating in the blue screen of death, which I didn't know modern operating systems even had. This concludes our exploration of the Van Buren medium. Which version do you guys like the most? We have Revelation Blue in the Vegas engine, the least authentic looking of the three. What's up with all that bloom? Makes it look like a mid-2000s game. Is this Oblivion with guns? Project Van Buren in Unity by Adam Latsko, who will have to dedicate his existence to working on the game because building all the systems and creating the visual assets is almost an impossible task for a single individual. And then there is Fallout Yesterday in the classic engine, the game that was in development since 2013 with fuck all to show for it. But you know, I'm just saying, the design docs are out there. There is a proper Black Isle role-playing game existing on paper, begging to be made real. Honestly, I went into this with extreme enthusiasm, but now having familiarized myself with the Van Buren scene, the future is clouded and uncertain. We need a miracle. What about that guy from Siberia who made Sonora? He is the Kwisatz Haderach of classic Fallout, being almost solely responsible for 2 total conversions out of existing 4. The community should come together and through a combination of begging, Patreon donations, and threats, make him build a Van Buren for us.
I thank you all for attending these proceedings, and I hope their significance is not lost. Good evening.